Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Social Work Bubble podcast. I'm your host, Laura. I'm a licensed master social worker here in New York, and today we welcome a special guest, Harleny Vasquez, MSW, who will be speaking on branding for social workers, why it's important, how social workers can position themselves as an asset, and really exciting, important conversations that I don't think we have enough, especially in social work. Oh, and she's an LMSW, not an MSW. Now, before we get into today's episode, don't forget to like, share, follow the podcast on whatever platform you're listening on. Now, Harleny, can you introduce yourself to the listeners and just tell a little bit about yourself and your background?
Yes. So I'm so excited to be here. So my name is Harleny Vasquez. I am a licensed master level social worker with 10 years of experience working in the field of social services, providing trauma-informed care to children and families. And through that experience, I fell in love with the world of professional development. And it led me into recruiting and starting my own business here of mine, which is a career consulting firm. I'm dedicated to supporting social workers as they get ready to embark the next steps in their career. And I serve as a career coach, workshop facilitator, speaker. I'm also a podcast host of Social Work Insider. So I wear many hats, but as you know, I'm just very dedicated to, just uplifting and elevating our profession and really helping social workers seek non-traditional roles and basically get higher in like any area of practice.
Amazing. I mean, and I've seen the work that you do, and you've really supported a big amount of social workers and just kind of getting to the next level. It's really exciting.
Thank you.
Good. Now, I mean, for you coach a lot, like your thing is like helping social workers build a brand. Why do you think, especially with your experience in social work, why is that important for social workers to do?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it first starts with the foundations of social work in general when it comes to our field. And I mean the foundations because as we know, regardless of where you're located, right? There's a lot of stigma. There's a lot of stigma about our profession, about what we can utilize our degree for, that social work is only private practice and that social work, it's only like social services and that you won't get paid and burned out. There's just so much negative noise. So it's so important for social workers to have the understanding that they are worth so much more. And that, with our degree, it's honestly, and obviously we're being biased about this, but we have one of the best degrees ever because we are able to just utilize our degree to do whatever we want. But it first starts with personal branding. And personal branding is basically drafting a unique personal statement of your overall skill set, of your overall mission, of your overall why in relation to the type of role that you want to obtain. It's really about having a personal brand also ties into having an online presence. I mean, I know we'll get into LinkedIn and everything in a little bit, but in order for you to be able to work in any area of practice, you first have to start with getting in tune of identifying like who you are, your areas of improvement, your strengths, and then creating those non-negotiables.
Okay, amazing. Now, I mean, I think you're right too, because I've seen in a lot of social work, it's so normalized just to have a terrible job with terrible pay and to like not be thriving at all. And so to have this perspective of like, no, like you can achieve something, you can feel good and have this power over your life, and this role as a social worker is huge.
Absolutely.
Great. Now, I mean, what can a personal brand look like for social workers? What have you seen?
Absolutely. So personal brand could be, okay, let's say someone is specialized in trauma-informed care and evidence-based practice, and they are very passionate about, providing wellness consulting to organizations. Let's just give an example. And this is something that they're like, for anyone listening, it's like, wait a minute, Harleny, how do I even get there? Like, how can I, like, that sounds pretty cool, but how can I do that? If you're a clinical social worker or just a licensed social worker and you have experience in providing trauma-informed care. And your overall goal is to utilize those skills to then be able to kind of put that in a little package to then be able to support employees and corporations and organizations utilizing your skills. You have to have a personal brand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because companies are looking to invest, right? Because at the end of the day, it's a business. But before you're able to, whether starting a side hustle, whether, kind of pivoting out of the current normal social work roles, you have to be able to build an online presence. And this is where your personal brand comes into play. A personal brand can also come into the light of, let's say you go to an interview and they're like, tell me about yourself, right? That question that everybody hates.
Yes.
And if you're able to identify like who you are, where you are in your current journey, what are your areas of expertise and what do you want to use that expertise for? Like, what's the outcome? That is also part of building your personal brand. So for example, I've even seen other clients who I've helped get jobs and the wanting to, start a side hustle around like wellness consulting, right? Or even around being a life coach. I mean, our degree, like I said, gives us the foundations and the tools to be able to work in any area of practice. And I say any area of practice because the opportunities are endless, right? I always hear from clients like, wait a minute, Harleny, I want to pivot out of private practice, but I don't know where to go. And that's the problem. At times we tend to put ourselves in a box and it really starts with, how about you ask yourself, what do you want to be known for? What do you want to do? And then finding either an organization, a company, or starting a business that's going to align with your own mission and values.
No. So a lot of it's also like working out the details, like the details of who you are, where that experience and expertise is, where you want to be next. Like, as you're starting to answer those questions, it'll become clear, like how a social worker wants to move forward.
Absolutely. And I think it really starts, I throw the word out, career inventory a lot. And, sometimes we forget the things that we're really good at and the things that really light us up. For example, I'm a natural career cheerleader, and this is something that I've known all my life. But, through various roles, before I started my business, before I got into recruiting, I was putting myself in a box in social services without realizing our surroundings. Through those interactions, I was always the go-to person that people came to when it came to resume and, interviewing and job search strategy. And it wasn't until I became a supervisor and started supervising interns and started hiring and recruiting for my team to recognize like, oh my God, like this is what I love doing. I love talking to people about their goals. So I want to challenge you all in the sense that ask the people around you that knows you best, ask your mentors and ask them, what do you think? Or what have you recognized some of the things in my life or different areas or different, particular opportunities that have I come across that really light me up? So it's really about that self-reflection and then being able to build on that and identifying your own mission statement.
Absolutely. That's very powerful because it is hard to, I think, for some people to actually sit down and think about, okay, what are my strengths? What are those things that really feel good for me? So like you said, to even ask other people, to get other people's perspective can really help hone that.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, self-sabotage is real, as we know. And I think it really starts, I mean, I've worked with clients where even going through their resume, they got very overwhelmed, right? Because maybe a job was toxic or maybe, they had a supervisor that didn't, provide the safe space that they needed to be able to thrive. And this is where that inventory comes into place. In order for you to be able to build a personal brand, you first have to do that inner reflection, right? I mean, we're all social workers. We do that for our clients. We do that for organizations, but we never do it for ourselves. And I understand that feeling to process, to sit in silence is absolutely hard because it can trigger a lot of things, but it really starts with that recognizing that self-worth. And this is something that, for example, you can look at your current job or your current internship or your current fellowship and asking yourself, what are the things that I can identify in my current role that I absolutely love? What are the current things in my organization, again, in the current role that I'm like, I don't want to do this again. And then really building your own ideal job description or ideal, company to work for based on those particular non-negotiables that you're creating for yourself. So I hope that's also being able to be clear to people when they're kind of doing this self-reflection and this inventory.
Absolutely. It's kind of very much like just creating a roadmap for what's next. Wonderful.
Absolutely.
Okay. Now, I mean, you've mentioned like social media presence on top of that. So like we have this roadmap. How does social media come into play with a personal brand for social workers?
Of course. I mean, listen, it's 2023. As we all know, technology is taking over from AI, ChatGPT, all of these things. And I know that there's going to be a lot of uncertainty in the job market, giving all of this advanced technology, but you have to build an online presence, right? And whether you're a job seeker or not, you just never know where you're going to be in your life. So you have to build an online presence. Now, I do want to emphasize that having an online presence does not mean you have to be an influencer, a content creator. It doesn't mean that. Like I hear, you won't be surprised of how many social workers I come into, kind of connection with, and they're like, LinkedIn, what? I don't want to be in that platform because there's just so much stigma as well that LinkedIn, you only go there to get a job, right? But LinkedIn is a networking platform, and online presence obviously does not need to be LinkedIn. It could be YouTube. It could be a blog. It could be a podcast. It is just an outlet for you to display your skills, right? For you to become a known thought leader. Like I mentioned before, if you know you want to be a wellness consultant, providing trauma-informed, care and implement your particular overview of specific skills, that outcome, then you can use social media, again, regardless of what platform you want to use, and show your areas of expertise. Give yourself the permission to be known and to be seen. And I know that's absolutely scary as well, because again, those limiting beliefs can kick in, but it's basically a portfolio of your skills. Think about a combination of your resume and your cover letter mixed together, but you are taking it a deep further and being able to tell your story, being able to draft an effective storytelling component when it comes to you displaying your skills, your why, and your vision.
Absolutely. Because I've seen that too even in just building a caseload, outside of like transitioning to a different job or building a brand, like people use social media so much just to like see, okay, what professionals are even out there, or people that are posting are automatically seen as people that know what they're talking about, so it very much is important and part of just the culture that we live in now.
Absolutely. And I think it's also about, making sure that you recognize your strengths, right? I mean, again, going back to the foundations of what social work school taught us. Yeah, they didn't teach us how to market ourselves, but you all have the tools and the knowledge to be able to be a connector of resources, building rapport, right? Whether you are a social worker who's in direct practice or a social worker that wants to do more of a macro work or more meso work, at the end of the day, you still have to identify what are the things that absolutely light you up and what are your unique areas of expertise. Because when it comes to building your personal brand, you have to position yourself as the solution to other people's problems, right? Or organizations' problems, right? And I'm saying solution, you can find these things. Again, as a career coach, social workers come to me because they want to be able to rebrand themselves. They want to pivot. They want to be able to just get a new job, or they're feeling, they don't have confidence in their abilities to negotiate salary, or numerous of things, right? So I was able to position myself as a thought leader and display to social workers that I can help them get to where they want to be. It is the same thing when you're building a personal brand. If you want to be able to, again, going to stay on theme, working with corporations or organizations around employee wellness, then how can you position yourself as the go-to person around employee wellness? Maybe you have experience facilitating burnout prevention sessions, right? Or maybe you have experience creating lesson plans or curriculums around social emotional learning. I'm just kind of giving examples.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you all listening right now have a ton of experience doing all of these entities.
Absolutely. I mean, really honing in on, like you said, those strengths, the expertise that's there. Now, I mean, you mentioned LinkedIn, because I know like you're really big on LinkedIn. What's different about that versus other platforms that you find is really helpful?
Of course. I mean, hey, no shame to Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, all of those things. You have to find a platform that works for you. But LinkedIn for me and my industry, right? It's where you have at the palm of your hand for free people globally. And that's what most people don't recognize. So if you're a life coach, if you're a career coach, if you are a consultant, if you are a mental health speaker, LinkedIn is the platform you need to be. There's corporations and organizations in that particular space, right? And again, it really gives you access to, because you could post content, you could have a portfolio. But I just feel, and again, I'm not sponsored by LinkedIn because I know talk about LinkedIn. But I think for me, I found it to be the platform that has really changed my life because it has literally given me continue opportunities in my professional and business life, right? And this is to showcase if you're like, Harleny, but what platform do I start if I want to build your personal brand? Test it out. I'm not going to lie. I'm on Instagram and I kind of like just show up there for stories. And I started TikTok, but then I was just like, oh, I don't want to be recording all these videos. It's a lot.
Right.
I found for me, writing, connecting with people, setting up coffee chats is something that really works for me. There's some people that are blowing up on YouTube, right? Again, I don't know the future, but I think it really starts with assessing your skills. If you're a writer, then LinkedIn, it's great for you to be able to post content, right? Because that is how you're able to be seen. But if you're like, I'm an expresser, I love doing videos, then maybe platforms like Instagram, TikTok, or YouTube will be best for you because you like to create video content to be able to express yourself. So, hey, you won't know what platform is the best for you until you try it.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's something too that really resonates for me because I think when I first started, I wanted to do everything all at once, like all the platforms all at the same time. And I mean, through experience, I realized it's too much. Like, and to be able to really get a lot out of something, like, I mean, you want to explore what feels good for you, but then I was able to like find that and really hone in on that specific platform because like I really like Instagram for that reason. Because when I tried to put energy into everything else, like then you're not putting out like good material, like, cause it's just exhausting to try to keep up with everything. So also like take the pressure off and know, like, just find something that works. You don't have to do it all.
Absolutely. Yeah. If, again, we're all human, there'll be times that I'm like, damn, I should be doing more things on Instagram or I should be doing more things on TikTok. But I'm like, screw it, Harleny. Like you're on LinkedIn, stick to that and let everything be just a platform just to be a platform. So, or you could have a podcast, right? Like it's really about finding things that bring you joy. Like at least in the world of entrepreneurship or even being like a creator, content creator or anything you want to do, there's no rules. Like you literally can do whatever you want. But as long as you're able to find an outlet to be able to show your unique areas of expertise and position yourself as a thought leader, that is building a personal brand.
Absolutely. Now, when it comes to that aspect, like positioning yourself as a thought leader, positioning yourself as an asset, what does that look like in practice?
Of course. So as I mentioned before, you always want, depending your goal, right? Depending your goal, whether you want to be an entrepreneur, whether you want to be a job seeker, you first have to identify what is your why, right? Like, what do you want to do? If it's, again, creating mental health content for a mental health tech company, right? Because I want to help them bring more clients to their practice, right? Maybe that's your why. Or maybe you want to be a career coach or a life coach to help people enhance their overall life, right? Or maybe I just need a new job as a therapist, or I want to work in policy and in government. You first have to identify, like, what's your why? What do you want to do in this current stage of your life? Then once you do, then that's where you're going to be able to position yourself as an asset, because you have to optimize things for every stage of your life, right? Because again, if you're a job seeker and let's say you want to be a therapist, then how can you position yourself as an asset for the company that you want to work for? Let's say you want to work for a private practice. You first have to then be able to highlight what are the type of people they're looking for, right? If they want someone who's skilled in CBT and, you know, EMDR, giving an example, and you have that, then you want to make sure that you position yourself as an asset in those areas of expertise. As a recruiter, I've seen so many, and mind you, I'm going to give 3 different examples right now. I'm staying on the theme as a job seeker. But as a recruiter, I've seen so many times, at least for therapists, they start talking about, you know, different population when I'm currently looking for a different population, right? Like if you're applying as a therapist to work with children and families, and you end up in your interview or even on your LinkedIn profile or your resume talking about all your experience with adults, then you're not positioning yourself as an asset because it doesn't align. Remember how I said you have to position yourself as the solution to your employer or, you know, particular targets, targets problem. Then that is what I mean about positioning yourself as an asset. I have to make them realize that they need, like, I am the best person for this role. I have everything that you're looking for on top of that, even more, right? So that's what I mean in that lens of a job seeker. Now let's talk about entrepreneurship. This also goes back to, at least for example, for social workers, what is the biggest thing that the industry is currently facing? Yes, this list can go on and on, from licensure to salary. I mean, you know, but for me, one thing I love talking about the social work in me, right? I love talking about my story, right? How I struggled with my license and then I passed and then I was able to build my own personal brand, but I was also able to take the non-traditional social work route. So that already, my brand, I have to be able to ensure that I tie my, I guess, positioning myself as an asset, as a doctor, to be able to get clients or organizations to want to work with me, right? Like, let's say you were a potential client that you wanted to work with me. You're going to be like, okay, she's a social worker, she's a career coach, she's in recruiting. But what about Harleny should make me want to work with her? Right? If you're like, I struggle with interviews, I have interview anxiety, and then I go and position myself like, I know how it feels to struggle when you interview. I know how it feels to freeze. I know how it feels to not be able to say the right things. Then I can help you secure your next opportunity by helping you focus and overcome this interview anxiety. You're going to be like, oh my God, of course, I want to work with Harleny. She understands me. So this is what I mean about positioning yourself as the solution to your targeted industry or particular area of practice.
Okay. I mean, that makes a lot of sense because you're really, I mean, especially that example that you gave of, you know, when you're only really speaking to the adult experience, but you want to work with kids. Like that makes a lot of sense, but I don't think a lot of people see that when that's happening.
Absolutely. And hey, no guilt, no shame to anyone. Again, there's no rule book, there's no handbook, especially for our profession. But this is where, I mean, I'm not going to lie, I'm going to be blunt about it. Those listening skills, y'all, you all don't, like, I've come across in my 5 years of experience, I've been recruiting and been a hiring manager. I'll ask a question and people won't answer it. They'll start talking about something else. Like you did not, you may be wondering why you didn't get the job. That's because, right? If I'm asking you, tell me about your clinical experience, and then you start talking about something else, you're not answering the question.
Right.
So I want everyone to kind of assess, right, how they interview, how they, trust me, speaking about your experience is one of the hardest things to do, but this is where doing that inventory, recognizing your strengths, recognizing your areas of improvement, but really redefining your why and your area of focus is going to be so much easier for you, in the end result.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I mean, with your experience that you've had in the last couple of years of like coaching social workers, helping them get to wherever they want to be, what have you noticed has been the impact of social workers creating a brand for themselves?
I would say, like, you mean like the different examples of like how social workers have created that impact, or more like on a on a negative standpoint?
I mean, whatever comes up for you.
I feel like I've definitely seen a lot of successes. I mean, I've definitely have helped over, I don't know, 200 social workers over the last 4 years,
Wow.
secure new opportunities, whether they were in quote unquote social work, or they pivoted. And I think that, there's just a lot of power. You regain that sense of control back because like I said, there's a lot of stigma in our profession. And even, yes, we're, New York, well, I'm in New Jersey now, all of these things. Yeah, for us, we may have a different outlook, but it's going to be different for someone who's in Texas or someone who's in California, right? When it comes to social work and the industry and the job market. So being able to give social workers that ability to recognize, wow, wait, they're a social worker? Wow, they did that? Wait, I can do it too, right? So we're it's like the domino effect, right? For the upcoming future generation of leaders in the social work profession, for them to see us as trailblazers and really doing, non-traditional things, they're going to be like, wait a minute, this is the new norm. And I hope that more social workers continue to build their personal brand and go out there and secure the success you desire. And hopefully it will mirror across, the social work education. So then they can revamp their whole, particular curriculum. And I say revamp because, as you know, professional development has to be one of the core pieces, in social work school. And yeah, if you're a social work school, please don't come for me. I'm just speaking from the heart. But, professional development, career resources, helping social workers not feel so lost if they end up not wanting to go a traditional route. Yes, I'm a licensed social worker. I went to Fordham. I did the clinical route, but there was one point because when I couldn't pass my licensure, I was questioning my entire degree because if I'm like, wait a minute, I went to school and I can't pass this license. Now, what am I going to do? So I understand many of y'all can probably feel the same way, but I want to be able to first validate that you're not alone. Your thoughts are absolutely real. But I want you all to know that this is your social work degree. This is your investment. You all have skills. You all have experience. You just need to be able to create your own toolkit of success and go out there and again, create the success you desire. I know it's easier said than done, but it first starts with that self-reflection and then really figuring out, okay, based on this inventory that I did and this ideal job description that I created for myself, now what's currently in the job market based on what I want, right? Because again, I've seen many social workers before they work with me. I'm like, what does your job search strategy look like? They're like, oh, I'm just in Indeed or I'm in this platform and I'm just searching my life away. Number one, that's time consuming. Number two, that's draining your mental health. And number three, that's leading you towards self-sabotage because you're looking at the job description. You're like, that doesn't sound like me, or I don't have the potential. And then you're just kind of like picking your brain and tearing yourself apart, and then you don't even apply. So in order for you to cut that time in half, build your own toolkit, identify your ideal job description, set those non-negotiables, and then go out there in the job market and see what aligns.
Yeah, that's huge. What a blueprint.
What happened?
What a blueprint. I mean, because checking all those boxes to really get to the next step. Wonderful.
Absolutely. And again, this goes back to if you're currently in social work school and you currently have vision and you currently have and identify areas of interest, that's great. But if along the way those areas of interest change, do not beat yourself up. You
Mm-hmm.
know what I mean? Like you are allowed to change your mind because no one at the end of the day is meant to understand your vision but you.
Yeah,
I'm
absolutely.
preaching now.
I mean, it's important to be said though, because even when I was in school or like after I graduated, like I was in outpatient mental health and I hated it. And I started like to have those same things of like, oh my God, like I'm only 1 year post grad and I'm already burnt out. Like, am I even equipped to be a social worker? Like you really like get in your head and start to question yourself when, it's not about that at all. It's just trying to find a place where you can thrive.
Absolutely. There's an employer out there waiting for you. If not, you start your own business. If I know entrepreneurship is not for everyone either. So I don't want you all to be like, I don't want to start my own business. That's okay too. But at the end of the day, you have to do what feels right to you.
Absolutely. What have you noticed, Harleny? I mean, you've mentioned self-sabotaging, but are there any other like really big barriers that you've noticed from people kind of getting to that next step in their journey?
Well, in regards to like self-sabotage, I mean, not having the resources, not having
Yeah.
the tools, and I mean resources and tools by, I mean, I've seen some really crazy resumes, I'm not gonna lie. Pages and pages. But again, this is not to guilt anyone. It really depends on the resource that they had available at that time, right? Maybe it
Mhm.
was, I don't know, the institution or the particular career center they went to, whatever it is, right?
Mhm.
The lack of tools and the lack of resources that, social workers among other industries may have. But going back to that is 2023, there's a lot of free career tools that you can use to like revamp your resume or like revamp your LinkedIn profile. And obviously I'm not sponsored by any of the following tools I'm going to say, but there's one called Teal. TEAL,
Mhm.
and it helps you navigate the job process. It's more of like a resource tool. It'll create like an Excel sheet for you as you apply to jobs. It'll
Mhm.
tell you exactly what you need to do, like reach out to this hiring manager, kind of give you prompts of like formatting with your resume and your LinkedIn profile. So right now, because technology is so advanced, there's a lot of tools, but people forget that
Mhm.
there's these free tools available to job seekers at this time. So I think besides number one, those limiting beliefs that can hold you back, I think it really goes back to that lack of knowledge within, right?
Mm.
Because you have these limiting beliefs hold you back, but you also maybe have not taken the time to really recognize your strengths and your skills, right?
Yeah.
And that is also the biggest component that I see many social workers not do because yes, it can be overwhelming, but going back to meeting yourself where you're at. And you feel you're still struggling. I mean, whether you reach out to me as a career coach, there's many other social work career coaches out there too. I'm not the only one. So I want to plug them as well. Cause, we are a community, hey, it may click with one coach or not click with another coach.
Mhm.
So it's always about finding the right person for you to help you get to the next level in your career.
Sure. Absolutely. Now, I mean, would any of this differ depending on where someone is in their social work journey, like from new graduates to seasoned social workers, or do you feel like this is pretty like solid no matter where you're at?
This is solid no matter where you are. I have worked with new students who are about to graduate, new graduates, or even like seasoned social workers that, are
Mhm.
close to retirement.
Yeah.
I've seen over the past 4 years, the same remember how I said positioning yourself as a solution?
Yes.
That is how I wouldn't say like market research because all of them have big clients, but these are things that I've seen, right? It's more
Mhm.
of like, Harleny, I don't know how to I don't know how to market myself. I don't know how to position myself, or I don't know what I want to do next. I'm burned out. I don't want to do private practice. I don't want to be a therapist anymore. What else is there to do? So
Mhm.
that's the reason why I want to challenge you all that if you're currently in that space, it starts first with that self-reflection, recognizing were there any limiting beliefs that maybe held you from seeking a promotion, from applying to a particular job. Okay. Second is then doing that career inventory to identify what were the things that I truly loved about this job, or what were the things that I'm like, oh, I wish I would have had more supervision, or I wish I would have had more opportunities to learn about this area or this area, and literally having a Google Doc and putting all of these specific lists. And that is how you're going to start identifying your non-negotiables. If you currently left a toxic work environment, then you know your non-negotiable in your next role is going to be supervision, a team. And that's also going to give you more of preparation of the type of questions that you can ask in your next interview. And that is what I mean, your non-negotiables. If you know that you left your previous employer because there wasn't room to grow, then then the interview, you're going to be like, can you tell me a little bit more about the company culture? Is there room to grow? Can you walk me a little bit through what that everyday today looks like? So by you doing this self-reflection is basically going to set you up for success. It's going to give you some clarity as to the different areas that you can work towards next based on the things that you identify. And it's also going to help you create more of that roadmap to be able to ask specific questions in your next interview to ensure that things still stay aligned for you.
Absolutely. That's so powerful too, because I've seen so often, like, we can just be in our head and be like, well, I know this doesn't feel good, but I don't really know what I want. Like, to be intentional and to sit down, put pen to paper and be like, this is what I want. These are the goals. This is what feels good for me. That's powerful in its own way because it helps clarify things for yourself. And then once you can see that, it's way more tangible to actually reach it.
Absolutely, because like many of us, again, including myself back then, especially as a new grad, or even if you're a seasoned social worker, think about it. You only know what you know until this point. You only know what school told you. Oh, you're going to be a clinical social worker, or you're going to be more of a macro social worker, and then that's it. There's social workers that stay at their jobs for years because that's all they know. But that's right about kind of giving yourself a chance. And if you're like, let's say you identify these skills, these areas of expertise, and you're like finding a theme, great. If you're like, I'm still stuck, I don't know what I want to do, then this is where networking and doing these informational chats and going on LinkedIn and connecting with other social workers who are in ideal spaces, right? If they're like, I get all the time social workers reach out to you like, obviously I wish I can do a coffee chat with all, but there's only so much time, but I do do them from time to time. But they're like, Harleny, I see you pivoted out of social work and you're a recruiter. I would love to talk to you about your journey. I want to pivot into recruiting, right? And that's something that I often, do. So it's really about, again, finding your tribe and also talking to social workers who are those ideal spaces that you may want to be in.
Absolutely. That in itself is so empowering because when you feel so isolated and disconnected, there's so much power in just connecting with other people in a similar path or to where you want to be because it really just makes things seem real. Like, oh, I can do that too.
Absolutely. And you're not alone. Like I said, you're not the only social worker, like in your head, feeling stuck or feeling burned out. There's a whole, and everyone has different unique areas of expertise, whether you believe it or not. Again, I know someone who specializes in burnout. I know someone who helps social workers get their license. I know someone that is in different areas of expertise and you all have things to offer. You are an asset in your own way.
Absolutely. Well, Harleny, this has been such a great talk. I'm feeling empowered and energized right now. This is so great. Now you have a lot going on. Of course, you have many hats. Where can the listeners kind of keep up with you and what you're doing?
Of course. Well, as I mentioned, I have a podcast called Social Work Insider. I'm actually about to end season 3 next month. So definitely you want to make sure you go out there and binge. It's available literally in like every platform, Apple, Spotify, Google. But you can definitely follow me on LinkedIn by my name, Harleny Vasquez,
Okay.
and on Instagram and TikTok by Your Evolved Mind. Stay tuned because I'm definitely going to get back to TikTok. I know a lot of people have been asking it because when I started, it was fun. So I'm going to find a way to not make it, seem like I'm gonna burn myself out.
Oh, that's so great. Okay. And for those listening, everything will be linked in the description below, so you can go follow Harleny and her journey. And remember, if anything resonated with you today, please like, comment, share, and we will see you next time.